There's a hard fact that every player must face eventually. Father Time is undefeated. As we get older, our reaction times decline, and with it, typically hand speed. As opposed to that, the speed that players are able to hit the ball is ever increasing, giving rise to the age of the banger. Today we're going to look at how you can keep your reactions sharp by improving your anticipation. Think about your game. Do you always attack first, or do you usually want your opponent to make the first move so you can counterattack? If it's the former, it may well be because you don't trust your ability to predict when an attack is coming, a critical skill at the higher levels. You'll need both sides of the coin if you're going to reach your potential. An overly aggressive player will always pay the price when their opponent keeps the ball low enough, and a timid player will never apply enough pressure to be feared. What's at play here is called the anticipation cycle. Here's what it looks like. Firstly, tactical anticipation. Secondly, technical anticipation. And lastly, visual reception. Tactical anticipation refers to how the position of your opponent and the type of shot they have received helps you determine what kind of shot they're likely to hit. What you're trying to decide here is whether or not your opponent's position on the court, balance, and contact point are all good enough to warrant an attack. Each player will have their individual tendencies, but the universal green light to attack are high balls. Do your best to watch your partner's shots off the paddle, as this will give you the first-hand information about a potential attack. If you had kept your eyes glued on your opponent, then you probably weren't able to react in time. Remember, contact height up at the kitchen does relate to a player's reach, so if you find yourself heads up with a considerably taller player, then be ready for them to take more opportunities to attack. Technical anticipation relates to how you read your opponent's feet, hips, and shoulders as they play the ball. Reading your opponent's technique is incredibly useful for two reasons. Firstly, if your tactical anticipation didn't make you aware of an imminent attack, then your technical anticipation can come to the rescue. Secondly, the visual cues of your opponent's technique can also indicate the power, direction, and spin of the attack. Pickleball players can be very sneaky, which means often our first line of anticipation, tactical, can't be solely relied on. Here are some technique cues to know when your opponent is about to attack. Their takeaway. Creating power takes more paddlehead speed than a dink, so players very often increase the length of their takeaway. Watch for either a shoulder turn or a wrist hinge to indicate an attack is coming. Stepping back. Leverage is one of the key components to power, and that takes additional distance around the ball. Watch for your opponent to step back to give that extra room to strike. Dropping body height. Rapidly dropping body height is a classic indicator that an attack is coming for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's the perfect way to get the paddle low enough to create topspin, and secondly, it allows leg drive to be used for additional power. Keep an eye on their normal body height during dink rallies so you can be more aware of when they drop down to attack. Visual reception refers to the direction and speed of the ball coming off your opponent's paddle face without any anticipation cues. In this sense, I've got some good news and some bad news for you. The good news is, this is something that will happen largely organically. The bad news is, unfortunately, it takes time. You'll notice that experienced tennis players have a leg up in this because they've had many years of practicing discriminating the speed and direction of balls coming off rackets, seemingly giving them faster reaction speed. A simple trick for you to improve is to count in your head during practice. Count 1 when you or your partner hits the ball, count 2 when the ball bounces on the other side or your opponent plays a volley, and count 3 if your opponent contacts the ball after the bounce. This will force your eyes to watch closely the paddle face and therefore start to gather more information to be used for visual reception. Another great drill is to stand opposite a player at the kitchen line and have them say the number 1, 2, or 3 just prior to hitting the ball.
3.
The number relates to how many times the ball must bounce before you can hit it. This will challenge you to find a good position and be on balance by reading the pace and height of your opponent's shots. Today's lesson was all about speed. Bangers are rampant in this sport and can dominate a lot of levels of play for one simple reason, because they can. After all, if power didn't work, then they'd have to learn the soft game or lose. Our aim today was to help you turn the tide by improving your reaction speed through greater anticipation. This won't happen overnight, but it will happen. So the next time you're out there playing, try to consider how well you're anticipating and how you can react a little quicker. What's at play here is called the anticipation cycle. No, it's a cycle, it's not a keitel. God! Get it together, Evans. I always tell the truth, even when I lie.
You can't hit a bad shot.
Well, I can, I usually do. Okay, well now I feel the pressure, jeez. All right. Just stay behind the camera and keep it quiet.
Yes, sir.
That's a hummingbird.
2.
That's-